Hey, Falcon fans, this is Stickster. I don't have a script or anything that I'm shooting off today, so I'll do my best in the edit to make this all make sense. But this will be a little bit longer because I'm going to tour you through a patch. The request that I got was for one of these Braam type sounds, you know, those really loud kind of honking horns that you hear in movie trailers. And it's kind of a sound design cliche, but you know, people like to know how to make these things. It'll give you ideas for other stuff. So I'm going to tour you through one of these. It's going to sound like this when we get done. Okay, so hopefully this goes without saying, but you should have some good headphones or studio monitors to listen through, because that will make this hopefully make a lot more sense. Okay, so to get here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn off pretty much all of the effects and so forth that are going on here, so you can see how we're going to get started, which is going to be very simply. So I'm going to turn off all of these various effects. I'm also going to turn off some of the various modulations that I've going, and we'll get started. Also, you're going to notice that I've got the mapping open right now. I want this keyboard to stay open so you can see the notes I'm playing. In case you're not aware of this, you can change the size of this thing. So if you just float up here in the bar for the mapping, you can see how the cursor changes. And if you grab that and pull it down, you can shrink it down to nothing, or you can make it really big if you need to do that. So I'm going to turn this down. That way we can see a little bit more what's going on, but you can still hear my notes like this. Okay. So as you can hear, we've just got started with something very simple. We've got a few oscillators here. There's only one layer that we're using. We've got an analog sawtooth. We've got a few voices in stereo. We've got a wavetable here as well. I'll mute the other oscillators so you can hear what this wavetable is doing. Okay, so that's got some cool grit to it, kind of like this. Let me restore that. And we've got some noise as well. Put the analog back on. We've got some noise as well. The noise that's here, unfortunately, you can't see it. There's a Falcon bug that makes these disappear sometimes, but it's brown noise that we have going here, which is going to be very low in the spectrum. It tends to kind of congregate towards the low end, as opposed to white noise, which is equal volume everywhere, or pink, which is equal power everywhere. Now, let me start adding in some of the things that we do to give this thing some motion. I'm going to go to the wavetable, and one of the things obviously we want to do here is we want to induce some motion. There's only one voice here. It's in mono. We've got a little bit of phase distortion that's been applied, and we've got a wave index, not quite at the beginning here, but close at about 7% up the wavetable. I'm also enabling some frequency modulation here as well, not a very high depth, and a little bit out of tune. And so I'm going to turn on this modulation that I've got here, which is actually a modulation for the wave index on the wavetable. All right, so it basically just comes and goes. It's a simple envelope. It's just an ADSR. So it's basically coming up and then retreating downward. And that just gives the sound a little bit of motion. With a Braam, we don't intend it to go for a very long time. It's usually a finite amount. So this is fine to just do this during one cycle. So now what do I have going on after that? Well, after these oscillators, we've got a brick wall filter. And what I've done is I've got a high pass here. It's pretty low. What you're going to notice about Braams is that they don't really have as much bass information as you think. There definitely is low end, but not deep sub bass. So typically you're not going to find a lot in the very, very low end. And that way they're not going to interfere with, like, if you want a big taiko drum or a kettle drum or something like that that's really big and boomy, you can put that underneath a Braam if you want. So I've got this cutting off at about 74.3 hertz. do it with and without. Okay, so you can hear how that's cutting out that very low end so that it's not going to interfere with the rest of the sound. Then I've got a magnetic bass shaper, and I'm just doing this with the low end that's left. I'm doing a little bit of gnarliness to that. I don't know if you can hear that. It's very subtle. If you move this magnetic bass shaper in front of the filter, the effect is a lot more pronounced, but it actually starts to dirty up the sound to an extent that really isn't that useful. Next, I've got a drive and an overdrive, and I'm not going to turn these on one at a time because the volume will get really wonky if I do that. The drive is very, very hard here. It's 71%, so I'm driving very hard into the next stage. And then I've got an overdrive, and you're going to notice that although the input gain is not very high here, I've got a good amount of overdrive and trash, and then I'm doing about half of that mixed in, and I'm lowering the gain by a lot. So I'm actually compensating for both the drive and the overdrive. So let me do them without. Let me turn these on. You can hear the difference. All right, so that's really nasty now, right? Now, next thing I'm doing is applying an exciter. Again, turning up the amount quite a bit, mixing in quite a bit of this and lowering the gain. And I'll give you a before and after. All right, again, very subtle, but it's kind of going to smooth out the frequencies. It gives a lot more information up there. You're not necessarily going to hear it, but you're going to feel it, especially when we start applying some of the other effects. And then finally, I've got another brick wall filter here, which is, it's pretty low. It's about 1.63 hertz. The amount is, you could adjust this to taste, obviously. All right, and that is going to give us more of that character of the Braam. And again, you could adjust this to taste. You could have a little bit more. But I think for me, right about here is good. Somewhere in this area feels pretty good to me. All right. So now that we have that, what do we do with it? And notice how different that sound has got from where we were before. Again, if I turn all of these off and then apply them again, you're going to hear a big difference. Okay, good sound, but again, turn all of these things on. Very, very different in character. Okay, cool. All right, now we're going to jump up here to the program effects, and let's start with the digital EQ. So I'm going to turn this on, but I'm going to turn off all of the EQ factors that I've added here, and you'll hear it without. Okay, so that's without any of these points being applied. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn them on here one by one. So let's start with the high pass filter here. And this is just something I've got to make sure that there's just, we're not letting any of that ultra low end creep back in. Again, without and with. So you can see we're just making sure none of that very low sub bass gets back in here. Similarly, there's a low pass filter up here as well. What I've noticed is occasionally as I was playing with this sound, there would be some fuzz that would start to creep in up here above 5K, and it could kind of ruin the sound a bit. So I threw in this low pass filter just to make sure that doesn't come back in. Again, without and with. Okay. And finally, we've got this mid-range frequency here. For me, there's kind of I don't know what I call it. Like there's an area here that sounds cheap, and kind of weirdly boxy, and I don't dig that. So I added this in here, and it just kind of gets rid of it. All right. Again, it's subtle, but hopefully you can hear the difference if you've got some good headphones. All right. So that is a bit of EQ. Now I've got a disperser in here, and the disperser is here basically just to kind of juice up this this bottom end a little bit. It just gives it a little bit of oomph down in the bass when it starts up. Again, it's subtle. We're going to apply some chorus here without, and then with. Great. So that kind of widens the sound out and gives it some body. Now here is where things start to really get to where we're finishing out this Braam sound. So we're using the damped saturation here. I've got a little bit of a knee on it, and I've reduced some of the gains so that it doesn't get crazy when we introduce this. And then I'm mixing in about 40%. So this is really going to make a big difference when I engage this. There we go. So this starts to bring back some of that dirt, the growl up on the top, that buzz. Awesome. And then finally, we've got a couple of these reverbs. So I've got an iReverb that's using a really large cathedral hall, and I'm mixing in quite a bit of this. So pretty aggressive in terms of the mix. And this is really going to make a big difference here. So let me do without. You can really hear that, right? And then let's turn it off. Okay, not that impressive. Add that cathedral hall in. Awesome. And we're going to turn this spark verb on as well. And this is just there to do a little bit of extra polish. I've turned down the high end a bit, and I've turned up the low end in terms of the decay. So the high is going to fall off faster. So it's going to give the reverb kind of more body. And I've got a pretty sizable mix in here. About 25% of this, I'm rolling off some highs, not using a very big decay. So I don't need this to be very, very long. The cathedral's taking care of it. This is really just some polish. And I made this a very, the largest size room, and added a bit of shape and modulation. Okay, so it just kind of finishes it off. So again, without either of these, right? You're still, it sounds good, but you're really not getting that size once we apply these. Awesome. Now you're really getting that size to it. And then finally, now I've left these on because I didn't want any of the sound that we were playing with here to blow anybody's ears up. So I've kept a maximizer. All I've got a compressor on here, which is applying very gentle compression. And it has a pretty deep threshold of about minus 20 dB. And what that means is it's going to be compressing just subtly, but for a pretty large volume range. And that way, kind of just keeping the dynamics in check. Then I've got a maximizer to make sure that it stays loud for pretty much as long as I'm playing, right? Awesome. Without those, it doesn't sound bad, but when you add these in, it just holds that, it has that body throughout the entire time you're playing. So that, I think that really helps it stay very present, right? Now there's a couple finishing touches here as well. I've got these three modulators down here, a pitch attack, a pitch fall, and a pitch waver. And let me show you what each of these is doing. I'm going to run down here and look at the pitch attack. And basically, this is just a simple, each of these are the pitch attack and the pitch fall are both just digital DAH DSR envelopes. There's the pitch attack here, which is just a kind of a attack delay spike here. And basically, I'm using this to give the note kind of a bit of punch. This sound is quite a bit like a horn sound. In fact, if I play it up high, you're going to hear this sort of initial blurp kind of sound, and that's on purpose. It makes this thing sound like a big horn. Now, without it, you're just going to get a normal attack. So let me play without this pitch attack, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. Right? But then let me apply the pitch attack. You hear that initial pitch where the pitch is like, bia, bia. It's almost like that, those, the air horn, right? You would get that sound. Right? So again, without, and then with. All right, so I'm just doing that to the pitch here. In fact, let me go down here and I'll open up the pitch attack in our tree view here. This is very useful for looking at other sounds and seeing what they're doing. So I look at this pitch attack. You're going to see that we've got it's attached to basically both the analog and the wavetable, which are pitched, and it's applying a bit of a ratio. This is basically about 3 semitones that it's applying here. And there's a bit more on the analog than the wavetable. I did that basically just to make them a little more enharmonic when they start. So instead of moving exactly together, they're kind of a little out of tune with each other, and then they settle into tune with each other. Very subtle, but, made me happy. So that's what I did. The next thing we've got is this pitch fall. And the pitch fall, what this is doing is not much at the beginning. So as you can see, there's no attack, and the sustain's at 100%, which means the envelope just starts at the top. And then basically it's doing, it's essentially, this is going to fall off as we go. So we're going to turn this on. I don't know if you can hear that, but it falls off at the end. And once again, we've got this, the analog and the wavetable, let me look at the right ones here. The analog and the wavetable are both falling off at different amounts. The analog is falling more than the wavetable. Now, if you're looking at this, I'm going to point out something very important about this modulator. The modulator jumps up to 100% because the sustain is at 100%. We want that because we need there to be somewhere to go for the envelope. Of course, if you just apply this to the pitch, what's going to happen is the pitch is going to jump up by however much you've applied it. So the key is in here in the modulator is that you turn on the inversion. If I go over to the pitch fall and then again with the inversion applied, you hear it fall off. And I'm playing this note right here, which is A2, and you can hear it fall off like that. Now, if I take off the inversion for both of these, right, it's a different pitch because the ratio now is basically causing the initial modulation to immediately drop by over 2 semitones, right? So what we want is we want to turn that inversion on, and what's going to happen then with the pitch fall is it will jump up to the 0 point, and then it will fall off by however much we've selected here. Okay, so that's just a great point about modulation. Just as you think about modulations, there's a lot of different ways that you can apply them, and this is a way to get that pitch fall at the end without disturbing the note that we are actually playing. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, if you're on my Patreon, you're going to be able to download this patch. You can try it out for yourself, or just bring up a patch of your own and start playing around with modulations, and you'll get what I'm talking about. Now, there's one last modulation that I'm using here, which is an LFO. It's a sample and hold, and basically this is a pitch waiver. It's exactly what it sounds like. So this is modulating pretty quickly, several times a second. There's not a lot of depth to it, and I'm smoothing it out quite a bit. And so when I turn this on, the pitch is going to kind of move around a bit. Again, this is a way of just adding some motion, and it comes out really nicely, especially with that huge reverb that we've got going on. It just gives the whole thing a little bit less of a static feel. That's without, and then with. Again, these are subtle, but hopefully you can hear it. Now, if you wanted it to be less subtle, of course, you could turn this way up, turn the depth way up. That's a lot, but yeah, well, we're going to bring this back down to, close to that 25% point, and it ends up being subtle, but it sounds good. The nice thing about this Braam, I'm going to bring this back down to a low register. All right, now you can hear those effects in play, and they really sound like it's organic, it's thick, it's heavy. All right. So I hope that you enjoyed this little tour through this Valhalla Braam that I made. And again, if you're on my Patreon, you can grab a copy of this and play around with it on your own. If you like what you've heard, I've also got a Ko-fi site. You can feel free to drop me a little tip there if you like the things that I'm doing. And no obligation. I'm going to keep making these videos either way. I hope you're learning something about this. If you ever have requests or if you got things you'd like to see on the channel, I'm always open to input. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you have a lot of fun with Falcon. I'm Stickster, and I'll see you next time.